Hi, in this video I expand on how I have used generative AI as a co-constructor of research evidence in my final year research methods unit in education. In a previous video, I explained that I teach a unit designed to develop students' understanding of the qualitative methodologies of autoethnography and self-study. As part of this unit, students have to conduct an in-depth study of themselves, using a variety of methods to explore their own experiences. I decided to incorporate generative AI into the process to help students deepen their creative engagement with their own stories. So, why am I using AI in this context? The learning outcomes of my approach are threefold. First, I want to cultivate creative inquiry by translating narrative stories into visual formats, which is something that generative AI can help my students do. Second, I want to deepen my students' research reflexivity and personal exploration. And third, I want to ensure that I build AI literacy into my teaching, in this case by analyzing how the model defaults, evidence sets that it's generated, and choices that shape the outputs. In qualitative research, especially autoethnography and self-study, we ask students to examine their own experiences, but this can be emotionally and cognitively complex. I found that when students engage with visual and generative tools like AI, it helps lower the stakes of vulnerability while also sparking curiosity, imagination, and critical reflexivity. As part of their final project, students conduct an in depth exploration of themselves using multimodal methods. In this context, I've positioned the generative AI as not a shortcut, but a research interlocutor. My students and I use the AI to translate their narratives into visual formats, surface tacit knowledge and assumptions, co create visual artifacts that embody emotions, and engage in critical reflection about how AI generates meaning. So, what did I do? In 2025, I engaged with a popular social media trend, creating an action figure of myself using ChatGPT. It began playfully, but I quickly saw its pedagogical potential. The result? A Gen AI assisted version of Dr. Lynette Pretorius with packaging that described my scholarly values and interests. It even included a warning label: caution may cause systematic transformation in universities. I brought these artifacts to class as provocations for discussions. I told the students that I was particularly pleased when the Gen AI termed me an academic avenger, something I hoped reflect my goal to change academia, but also emphasized my fondness for the Marvel universe. We laughed when we noted that it said I wielded a book and coffee cup with formidable grace while delivering empowering insights. Pedagogically, the packaging did as much as the figure. I even purposely dressed in the same outfit that the Gen AI had created for my action figure and waited for the slow ripple of realization crossing the classroom. But behind the humor was serious work. The artifact helped foreground identity, affect, and embodiment in academic spaces, and showed how generative AI could make the personal political and the invisible visible. So, what worked well? The artifacts invited play with purpose. They lowered emotional risk, allowing students to explore personal experiences more safely. It helped to model ethical and reflexive co creation with generative AI. My approach also demonstrated how creative work can be framed as evidence and sparked discussions on power, bias, embodiment, and scholarly identity. Several students adapted my method for their final projects, showing how transferable, flexible, and empowering it can be when students feel the agency over their own inquiry. What challenges did I encounter? Well, not everything worked smoothly, as one would expect. Some students felt uncomfortable engaging with visual methods, doubting their legitimacy, something that is quite common when trying to use more creative methods in classes. We also found that the generative AI outputs were sometimes cliched or biased, which required guidance on how to revise prompt and read outputs more critically. But these challenges became teachable moments, prompting conversations about what counts as knowledge and who gets to decide, how to read generative AI artifacts more analytically, and why iterative prompting, critical distance, and methodological transparency are critical when using and working with generative AI. So, from this process, I've learned that co creation with generative AI invites creativity, but this only flourishes really when it is combined with critical framing. Secondly, I learned that students need scaffolding to understand how to use generative AI ethically and reflexively. Importantly, I discovered how humor and play can unlock serious, deep insight, especially when researching vulnerable or complex topics. Additionally, I showed my students that multimodal methods can help to deepen rather than dilute the rigor of their research, if paired with reflexivity. And finally, I showed that modeling matters. When I showed my work in progress, students felt safer to take risks in their projects. So, what can we learn? As educators, we have an opportunity to reshape research learning, not by abandoning rigor, but by expanding what rigor can look like. Generative AI, when used well, is not just a tool, but a conversation partner. It helps make the invisible more visible. It invites us to see ourselves and our scholarship differently. I'll continue to refine this practice, but for now, I hope this video helps to offer both inspiration and guidance for those looking to bring creativity, reflexivity, and ethical innovation into qualitative research and teaching.